It all started with my own son. At 20 months old, within 1 month, he lost eye contact, he lost words, he was able to feed himself before, and then he lost the ability to feed himself. He was an early walker, but now he started waddling. We're told that it's genetic, but really it's actually epigenetic.
She is an award-winning researcher, licensed brain health trainer, and founder of Autism Brain Empowerment. She wrote her #1 best-selling book, Unlock Autism, to help parents to guide their children in understanding their brains, reduce autism symptoms, and unlock their true potential. Theba Baja.
At one point you kind of feel hopeless, but you can't lose hope because it's your child. But there really isn't much help out there because a lot of people don't even know what causes autism. And that's why I decided to write a book called Unlock Autism. I think you do have to get over that, you have to be special to write a book. If you could help one person, then your book is valuable.
Theba, welcome to the Inspired by Show.
Thanks for having me, Chloe.
So we've been working together for quite some time on your book, and I'm very excited to say that it's now out and you're in the studio.
Yeah, thanks.
Feels like it's been a long time coming, but fantastic results. So we're going to talk a little bit about your book, but let's start off by finding out a little bit about you. So you're known as the expert that helps parents with autistic children.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about where that came from and sort of why you became an expert in that area.
Sure. Okay. So it all started with my own son. So when he was 20 months old, he experienced autism symptoms. So he had a regression in skills. So about 40% of children with autism have a skills regression where they look like they're born normally. They have eye contact. They have, good skills, communication, words. And then between 18 months to 36 months, they can have a rapid loss of skills. So that's what happened to my son. So at 20 months old, within 1 month, he lost eye contact, he lost words, he was able to feed himself before, and then he lost the ability to feed himself. He had a gross motor delay. So he was an early walker, but now he started waddling.
Interesting.
It was so much, and it was so rapid within 1 month. And obviously, as a mum, first at the beginning, you're sort of, okay, I'm sure everything will be okay. And then you can't deny it. So it's something big has happened and it's changed. And it's almost like overnight, but it was about over 1 month. And then we tried to get help as any parent would do. So we went to our GP and the GP sort of brushed us off. So she was like, he's too young to assess for autism. Because we suspected autism. So it's very, very common. And we just kind of knew the signs with no eye contact. So the GP brushed us off. And then we went to the health visitor and then she made all the appropriate referrals. So she referred us to speech and language, physio, occupational therapy, portage, dietitian. Literally, she made all the appropriate referrals. But then after a couple of months of waiting for the first appointment, we had the first appointment. And then in that appointment, I just felt like that physio, the therapist, she was more than trying to help my son. She was just trying to tell me to decrease my expectations of him. Yeah. So I thought, okay, the key is to present early because early intervention changes things for autistic children. So I knew that. And plus I studied dentistry for over 5 years at Bristol Uni. So I had a background in neuroscience and brain development and neuroanatomy. So I knew about how much the brain changes in the first 5 years and how much it grows. But so I thought, okay, present early, I can change things. But in the appointment with the therapist, every time I said something, he's struggling with this, he's struggling with that. And she was like, yeah, he will have that. Yeah, autistic children will have that. And I just felt like she wasn't going to help me and that no one cared as much as me. And that they didn't really have the resources or know how to help me. Like she even said okay, we'll see him for 30 minutes every 8 weeks.
Wow.
So I just felt like that's not enough to actually change things for him. So then I just decided that these people are not going to help me and I have to learn how to help myself. When I was at university, I actually won the clinical research prize in my year for my amazing research skills. So I just thought, okay, I can do this. I just learn as much as I can about autism and the biological causes of autism. Then if I just do the opposite, then he'll be okay. So that was my reasoning. So then I just learned so much about the biological causes of autism, methylation, gut health, environmental toxins, cerebellum growth, literally so much that by the time my son turned when he was 4.5, he had no autism symptoms anymore.
Wow. So from the age of just under 2 to 4.5, you'd completely changed
it. By 3.5, he was a lot better. But by 4.5, I actually remember the moment that I realized, okay, he's just like other children now, which is when he was in preschool. He was doing the singing Christmas carols in front of everyone. So he was on the stage with all the other children in preschool singing Christmas carols. So that's, you have to memorize the words, you sing on stage. He wasn't anxious anymore. And I just felt like, okay, he's just like all the other children now. And I just felt that relief.
Wow. And I think it must be hard as well, because like you say, when you're with the experts that are supposed to and paid to be the experts to help you through it, if you feel like they're just accepting the fate, they're accepting the situation, it must be quite frustrating when you're quite a driven person. You're like, no, I'm sure there's something more that we can do.
Absolutely.
As a parent, how did you feel when you started seeing the autism signs?
I feel like at the beginning, I was kind of clinging on to, no, he was fine. He was fine. And then to the point, it was actually became sort of depressing. So it was really quite depressing and really like if at one point you kind of feel hopeless, but you can't lose hope because it's your child without. Yeah. So I think when anyone's a parent, you have so many dreams for your child, and then to have to put limitations on them, it's just you can't do it easily. You can't accept that easily. So tired. Let's just maybe cut this out.
Don't worry, take your time, lovely. It's a great answer.
Okay. But I think it's really, really hard to accept that your child's going to have a difficult life. And you're right, being a driven person, as a parent, you have so many dreams for your child. I'd rather not live my whole life seeing my son struggle. So I thought, okay, there's a window of time to do something about this now. So then I just made the most of it.
Wow. And also, you did the best for him because he's at the age, 2 years old. He doesn't know any different.
Yes.
He's trusting you, relying on you as a parent. And I'm currently pregnant, and I can only imagine what it was like when you had that experience. I mean, I'm going through it even now, being the person carrying the baby, thinking, am I eating the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Like, what if they end up this? Is that my fault? And so I can only imagine when you start seeing signs, and then people who are the experts are sort of going, I'll just accept with that. Like, decrease your expectations.
I really could not accept that. Wow. I think that for me, it's harder to do nothing than to do something, because then at least you have the realization in your mind that you tried everything. So that's what I want. I'd rather have that rather than a regret. Oh, I should have done this. I should have done that.
Wow. So that's incredible. So you managed it with your own son. So how did you then go from doing it for your own son to then thinking, actually, this is something I want to learn more about, write a book about, build a business about?
Okay. So I started off being like the community expert in autism. So a lot of people had seen the transformation my son had made. And it's a little bit impressive that your son has autism, and now he's not anxious everywhere. He's thriving, he's talking, he's making fast progress. So I sort of became like the go-to expert in my friendship circles around autism. And a lot of people would send me videos of their child doing this, ask me for advice. And then I realized that a lot of people don't seem to have this knowledge, and that there was a real demand for it. And I just find, because I learned so much so quickly, I was surprised when people had older autistic children and they didn't know certain things, which I felt was so obvious. So then I thought there's a big demand here, and then I thought I should do something formal about it. And that's why I decided to write a book called Unlock Autism, and that describes my 7-step autism action plan. And that's been received really, really nicely actually by so many people. And now the information is out there, because a lot of people don't even know what causes autism. We're told that it's genetic, but really it's actually epigenetic. Which I can explain, which is that just because you have the genes for something doesn't mean you're necessarily going to express it. So genes can be switched on and off depending on your environment. For example, you might have a gene for obesity, but if you're always eating healthy food, if you're in a food poverty environment, your gene for obesity will never be expressed. So it's literally like genes load the gun, but your actions and your environment pulls the trigger. So autism is like that. It's epigenetic. And I feel like with a lot of parents who I've spoken to, especially the ones who had the rapid loss in skills and had that skills regression, they find it very hard to accept that it's genetic, because they say, my child wasn't born like this. So he wasn't like this. I've got videos of him like this. And they're really desperate to show people the videos that he or she was born normally and had eye contact and was saying words. But there really isn't much help out there, which is why I started this business to formally help parents now.
Wow. And I remember when we first started working on your book and I was reading the first manuscript, and one of the things that I can openly say, Thaber, I hope you don't mind me saying, but you were so humble and unaware of how valuable what you were sharing was. And I remember reading it and I was like, obviously wasn't pregnant at the time and definitely didn't think I'd be having kids soon. And it was like, I was reading it and I was thinking, God, there's so much knowledge in here that you'd picked up. And I think a lot of us undervalue our knowledge until we start seeing the impact it has on other people.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really value about your honesty is, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, is that you don't believe that autism is something that you can eliminate. It's not something you want people to be embarrassed about, right? So tell me a bit about your thoughts and how your approach is different.
Yeah, sure. So I think some people, like when I initially talk about you can change a person's autism symptoms so that they can become verbal. They can, stop stimming or decrease stimming. Their anxiety can go away. It can disappear. People will I get a very common criticism is all I'm trying to do is encourage children to mask. So masking is where a child or a person with autism will just mimic neurotypical actions and behaviors, but then usually when they get home they have a meltdown because they've had a really difficult day because they're not being themselves. So they'll have that meltdown at home. But I help parents. So parents, we see the whole picture of our child. Usually children who mask, parents are telling the teachers and the doctors that no, there's a problem, and the teachers and doctors don't believe them because they seem fine at school. But they don't believe that they're masking. But again, I help parents so they can see the full picture. And also, I feel like some therapies, like ABA therapy, do you know what ABA? It's like a behavioral therapy. It's very common in the US. We don't really have it in the UK. You can do it privately, but it's not available on the NHS here. So ABA therapy teaches autistic children how to do certain behaviors with like a reward. So it's for some children it's very effective. Like in America, there's loads of children and loads of parents will be so happy about ABA because their child's potty trained because of it, and all the other skills that they've learned through ABA. But it's very similar to how you would train a pet. So there's like a reward there, and if you were going to teach your child, if you were to teach your dog to be potty trained and not to go inside but only outside, and then you'd reward that behavior, that's very similar to ABA. It's positive rewards to teach a certain behavior. So that therapy encourages masking because you're teaching new behaviors like that. But my whole approach is healing children from the inside. So they naturally stop doing certain behaviors. They naturally become more verbal. It doesn't encourage masking at all.
I remember that when we were working on your book, because I think a lot of people try and fix the symptom, not the cause.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I find fascinating is that parents don't realize half the stuff that are causing it, stuff all around us. I mean, I read your book and I was like, this was mind-blowing to think of how you can prevent autism and now actually, for people who have it, how to handle it. When you were writing your book, how did you find the writing process? Tell me more about knowing what to put in your book and what not to put in your book.
Okay, so I personally love writing. I feel like I should have been writing books since I was 18. I genuinely feel like that. I'm known in my family and friendship circles for writing the longest messages, the longest text messages. I've always found essay writing easy, and really I should have been writing books since I was 18. But it's just not something most people do. I think you do have to get over that, you have to be special to write a book. Really, it's anything that if you could help one person, then your book is valuable. So in terms of my writing process, I think I found it quite easy because I enjoy writing, but I think it came because I actually, if you might remember, the manuscript was so long, and then you told me to cut like over half of it out because the essential thing was, is this something that parents need to know? If it's if it is, then yes, it stays in the book. If it's not, then just take out all the science. So because of my science background, and I love biology, love physiology, love learning, that I had to take out all the science. Like maybe parents don't need to know the science, but I can talk about science all day long because I love it.
Yeah. And you know what, though, but you're not the only person. I think one of the, as book mentors and writing mentors, one of the things we always find publishing people's books is we want to put everything in a book. Yeah. And actually when you have to drain it back and you go, does everybody need to understand this? Like it's taken you years and years and years and years to collect this information. They don't need to learn it all. It's what really makes a difference. And then, you know, you love writing, put it in the next book and the next book, and, you know, and everything can kind of go from there. So you then wrote your book. What was going through your mind? Did you ever sort of struggle with any imposter syndrome or questioning it or anything like that before you actually sort of said to us, right, come on, let's be my publisher?
I think I didn't struggle with imposter syndrome that much because I had helped so many people. So where I saw that my advice was really valuable and it's working for other families and it's changing families' lives, that I didn't really struggle with imposter syndrome that much because I thought, okay, this is definitely working. This definitely helps. And also, do you know like Reshma, I think her name's Reshma Gurani. Have you heard of Bicycle Face?
No.
Oh my God, I loved it. So she did I think last year she did I think it was a university in America called Smith University. So like an all women's university. And she did a speech there saying, congratulations on your graduation. And she's, I can't remember her surname. It's like Reshma Gurani or something, but she founded the company Girls Can Code or something like that. But in her speech, she's talking to a room full of accomplished women, just graduated from one of the best all-women universities in America. And she's talking to them about imposter syndrome. And then she tells a story about in the 1800s, doctors pathologized a condition to women called bicycle face. And bicycle face is a condition that women are getting, according to doctors at the time, getting from riding bicycles, and where their face is flushed, they have a strong look about them, and all these other features that they just pathologized, and it only affected women. Yeah. And then obviously bicycle face has been debunked. And Reshma was saying in her speech that she thinks this is the exact same thing as imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is almost like a women-only phenomenon. Mm-hmm. And it's it's something that women wrestle with. And then her whole idea in her speech was this is something that is made up to like limit women, and it doesn't seem to affect men, and it's a made up thing. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I just love Reshma's confidence. She's very inspiring, and her talk was very good as well.
Yeah, do you know what? I love that you've shared that. I love that you've shared that, because one of the things that I always struggle with is people that say, "Oh yeah, but that's just my imposter syndrome," and I'm like, giving it a label, you're giving it power, you're making it part of your identity. Yeah, and actually, it's something. Any syndrome, whether it's made up or not, any belief we have, we can choose to debunk it, we can choose to change it, or we can let it hold us back, right?
Yeah. But also Reshma said that she's been I loved what in that talk was so good, and she was so real. And she said that I've been in a room with presidents, senators, CEOs, congressmen, the whole works. And I feel really privileged, not because they're better than me, but because they're not.
Love that.
I know, honestly, I love her attitude.
Yeah. I think it's important though to realize that we all started from the same places or different places, but we all have the same choices, the same opportunities, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time. I think the biggest difference is the abilities and belief we have in ourselves.
Yes.
You look at people that have achieved from, nothing to something, or rags to riches, depending on how you sort of label it. And I think that's the point, is what you do with it. Like when you said about your son, you could have accepted what was told. Or you didn't, and that's where you are now. But people, we always have choices, right? Yeah. And it's about what we do with that and how we progress. Like you could have just started a business. Instead, you started a business, wrote a book, and now are being featured on podcasts and radios and all sorts of places. But that was because you chose that path. And that's the difference.
I think a lot of it is self-belief. It's just all comes down to self-belief. So when everything was happening with my son, I just knew, okay, I'm the only one that could help him, and I know I can do it. I felt like the therapist did, like Reshma said, I didn't think like they were better than me. I felt like if I could learn this and I could help him, and that he's going to be my number one like priority. So that's what I did.
Wow. And so on this book journey of, publishing a book and putting yourself out there, what would you say has been one of the biggest challenges you've sort of experienced in that process so far?
I feel like reconnecting with old friends, because I'm really lucky that I have a nice big friendship circle, and I have friends from school, I have friends from college, I have friends from university, I have friends from my first job, I have friends from like mum friends, I have friends from all walks of my life. And then when you do something that's out of the norm, and starting a business, publishing a best-selling book, you don't want people to treat you differently, but I feel like a lot of people feel like they have to treat me differently now, but I'm the exact same person I was a few months ago before the book came out. So I feel like that. And I feel like I'm really happy to talk about anything, but I feel like they have to talk about the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That'll wear off. they'll be literally like, I'm like, my friends now, they're like, please don't mention, like, you're putting more stuff about your book. What book are you working on now? And I have to try, especially because we publish books, right? So every day there's a new book we're talking about, different things, like whether it's how to pick your best wedding dress or fertility or gut health or business, marketing, whatever. And I just feel like if you think about it from our perspective, every conversation I could possibly have, there's a book, somewhere in the mix that we're working on. And I think the friends thing and family thing does wear off. But what I would say, and I'm curious to see how you find this, is that they may treat you differently as the perspective changes. Like, I know you're going to be doing more speaking and more podcasting, and they'll be there like, oh, check you out, saw you on that podcast or whatever. And I think sometimes it's them realizing our identity hasn't changed.
Yeah. That's it. Sometimes I feel like if you grow too fast, it is like uncomfortable for people. So that's another thing. Yeah.
Because they're maybe not ready. Their vision of who you are is not the vision of who you are anymore. And actually, put writing a book to one side, I hear this on entrepreneurs all the time, because when you start a business, I mean, people say, what's the best type of personal development? Starting a business. Because the wobbles, the ups and downs, the roller coaster, there's so much to it. Sometimes the doubts, people wanting refunds or whatever you might go through. And I often find that that's the bit that people grow and develop. And so the person you become afterwards is not the person that they know. Or they're like moaning about their day-to-day world, and you're like, oh, I remember that was when that was my problem, and I wish that was my problem. My boss has been a dick, or oh, I need a pay rise, and you're like, oh God, if only that was my problem. Now
that's true. You do. You're in a different stage of life. I think you find that with parenting as well, because I don't know if you're the first person in your friendship circle to get pregnant or have kids.
Yeah, we've got I've got two friends who have kids, but I don't see them all the time. They live where I used to live. So around me here,
Yeah. So I feel like your life as a parent is very different. You're like the weekends, when you're not a parent, your weekends are your weekends. You can do whatever you want with them. But for most parents I know now, the weekends are you're taking your kids to sports, you take them to a swimming lesson, you take them to a kid's birthday party, and then you kind of relax a little bit afterwards in the evening when they're sleeping. So just when you speak to parents people who aren't parents, and they get the weekend to do yoga and Pilates and like day trips, and like, oh, I can't go there. It's not family friendly. Like, you can't get a pushchair there. So you experience that a little bit, like difference in life. So like a business owner, someone who's still working in a corporate life, and someone who's parent and not parent, it's like a difference in identity.
That's one thing I'm kind of curious about, is how we're going to handle that difference, because it is very different, and also it's different for us because we've not had kids yet. So I think it's going to be an interesting thing. But I think whatever journey we go on in life, there's always change, and it's how we adapt to change. And come back down to what you shared about your son. It's like, you could have accepted it, you decided not to. She's literally like, baby, you're like, I couldn't have accepted it.
Never accept it. No, still can't accept it. No, I would never do that, because I have to try my best. I have to try my best.
And so obviously when you went on this sort of book journey, you've now published your book. How did it feel when it hit #1 on Amazon?
I was really happy. I was really, really happy. I was literally jumping up and down in my living room. I was so happy. And I think I sent a voice note to all of my friends and family. I'm number one across all the categories. I'm so happy.
Yeah. And for a tiny bit of context, obviously as your publisher, we always recommend where we place you, and we're always very authentic in it. And one of the categories was extremely competitive, which was actually the autism category. And I remember when we were debating it, and we sort of talked about, you know, it's gonna be harder, but actually it really resonates. So we were all, I think, quite shocked when you got to number one in that category. It was like, oh my gosh, you've done it. And now the book is worldwide.
Yeah, and also the reception for the book. People, when people are reading the book, a lot of people have said to me that they found information so useful. They say it's like they're talking to me. It's so easy to read. They're learning so much. I think, again, it's been really nice to hear. So that's actually been my favourite part, actually, as well. Hearing people's reception and their thoughts after reading the book.
Yeah, because that's all you ever want, right?
Yeah.
I think it comes back to also why you want to write a book. I find as a publisher, we get pitched a lot of books. And I don't know if you remember when we spoke to you, because I was the one that spoke to you. But a lot of the time we get authors that just want to get rich or vanity, just want the gold star. You know, they just want the blue tick. And I'm not saying there's not a place for that. But actually, book writing is a long process and a big project to just get that. And actually, it's who are you helping? What impact are you making? Yeah, okay, money's great. And sales come after a book if you launch it in the right way. But actually, it's less about that. It's more about the life changes that you're making and the impact you're making.
Yeah, that's true. I completely agree.
So I'm curious now, Theba, book's out. You've done fantastically well with it. What's next for you?
Now, we've been talking about quite a lot in this episode, how to write your book. Maybe there's a part of you that knows you want to write a book, but you don't really know how. Maybe you find yourself getting stuck in your own head with, what do I include in a book? Or what do people actually want to read? How will I write it? How do I keep the motivation going to actually get it done? Now, if any of those pop into your mind, then I'm really excited to introduce you to Just Write the Damn Book. It's a book I've written that tells you everything you need to know about how to actually write your book. Included in the book, I run through what's called the book writing blueprint. This helps you know how to write your book, get your ideas down on paper or on the keyboard to make sure you can get it out of your head as quick as possible. In this book, I share the system that I used to write my first book in just 10 days and publish it within 28 days. So if there's any part of you that thinks, Chloe, I don't have 6 months to write my book, you don't need it. You just need to learn how to just write it. So if you want to get your hands on Just Write the Damn Book, to grab your copy, all you got to do is click the link in the bio or in the show notes, and we'll be able to send you directly a copy of the book. You can grab it on Amazon, on Audible, on all the other book publishing platforms like Waterstones, Barnes & Noble, Spotify, and everywhere else. Get your copy and just write the damn book now.
I think just growing the business, helping as many families as I can. I've just been getting so much lovely feedback from families, so much lovely feedback. I recorded a video testimonial a few days ago, so that should be going on my YouTube channel in a few days. And the family, they were so happy. So happy. And they were like, when we started your program, it was a 6-month program. And we thought, there's no way that he'll probably need longer than 6 months. His symptoms are so severe. And he finished after 4 months. And they just cannot place, the words that they used was magical in the testimonial.
Wow.
So it's actually been really nice. And another client, she, in January, when I spoke to her, I was like, you can get your son into a mainstream school in September if you work with me. And she said, if anyone else had said that to her, she would never have believed them, because in January, her son had no eye contact, no words. He was prescribed an antipsychotic drug for his ADHD. And she was like, I don't want to give him the drug, but his behavior is so bad. His sleep is awful. You know, I've got no choice but to give him the drug, but I don't want him to have the drug. He's now completely off the drug. So as soon as she started my program, she's been like slowly decreasing his dose safely. By June, he's not on the drug at all.
Wow.
And he's saying, I love you, mummy. She's so happy. The dad is so happy. And the teacher said that he's fine to go to a mainstream school in September.
Oh, wow.
So it's so really nice because it's having such a big impact on families. And when you're a parent, all you can think about is your child. Like when people become a parent, people ask you, well, how are you doing? You'll say, oh, yeah, I'm doing well. And then you immediately start talking about your children. Oh, my son's doing this, my daughter's doing this, because how they're doing is so linked to your own well-being. So to do that for parents as well, to take their stress away from them, it's so nice.
Yeah, that's so amazing, because I think a lot of people will want the results for themselves, but what they don't realize is like, actually their kids, it's their only chance really, because the kids are too young. And I mean, what's your views if someone picks up as an adult with autism? Is it too late to make a difference?
I don't think it's too late to make a difference, because the whole book also explains neuroplasticity, which is that you can rewire your brain and you can change your brain. You can do that at any age, as long as you change the inputs going to your brain, in terms of like nutrition, food, what content you're doing, and lots of different things you can do, like neuromodulation therapies. It's all in the book. You can change your brain at any age. So they've proven that neuroplasticity is available to everyone up until the age of 75.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think things are generally easier with children. Just like it might be easier for a 5-year-old to learn French compared to a 15-year-old, or a 15-year-old to learn French compared to a 25-year-old, all of those things. But it's available to anyone. So you can be at any age and you can learn French. You can change your brain. You can learn new things. You can learn new skills. You can do that at any age. So if you are an adult with autism and you're struggling with the symptoms, then have a read of the book.
Wow. Oh, I love that. And I think the best thing for you, though, Thaber, is that the book is a way that people can have affordable help.
Yeah.
They can read it and you've not held anything back. We talked about taking stuff out, but really the book is still so action-packed. What surprised you about your journey of whether it's writing or publishing or becoming a bestseller that maybe you didn't expect?
I feel like I'm way more engaged in this than I thought I'd be. So, because obviously I had a career before and everything like that. And so I think I kind of thought I knew what I thought a job and a business might be similar, but then they're really worlds apart. And I guess how much I've learned as well. So that's also been surprising. Like, it's a huge learning curve and I've really enjoyed the journey. I love learning. So this has been great.
Yeah, and I remember when you were writing your book, you were also still researching other things, even though you already were the expert. It was like always, what more can I learn?
I love reading. I love learning. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And so let's talk pre your book. What books were you reading that inspired you or sort of helped you on your journey, whether that's inspired you to write or actually just generally helped you with what you were struggling with?
One of those books it's called A 10-Year Career by Jodie Cook. Have you heard of it?
No.
Oh, I love it. I'm actually a big fan of Jodie Cook as well. Or if there's a book and I love it, I turn out to be a big fan of the author. So Jodie Cook is one of them. I could tell you about her whole life if you wanted me to. But she is she seems like, if you look at her, if you meet her, if you speak to her, she seems like a normal person. Like, she graduated from Sheffield Uni, went to a state school, really normal. And then she started when she graduated at 21, she decided to start a social media business. And then then 10 years later, she sold it for a big, big sum of money. Wow. But in that time, she also was a what do you call it? Powerlifter for Great Britain.
Wow.
She she got married as well. Her and her husband do loads of charity work. So they and she published 20 books, by the way, including children's books, and they made those children's books available to every primary school in the UK about entrepreneurship. So that's like part of the charity work her and her husband did together. She took a month out traveling around the world every 3-4 months.
Wow.
While she's running her business. So she's a really inspiring person. And then she wrote a book called The 10-Year Career. And in the 10-Year Career was basically challenging the assumption that we all grew up with, which is you graduate at 21 or 22, and then you pick a career or you pick a job and you do that for 45 years until you retire. For her, that whole book is about every 10 years, do something different, because every 10 years you should be changing and you should be growing. And so for her, she was like talking about her life in chapters. And then she just finished that chapter of selling her social media business. And then she was in a bit of an in-between stage. And now she's opened a really great company called Vox AI or something, but she made AI coaches. So all coaches can make an AI version of themselves and help their clients on demand.
Wow.
I know, it's really cool, really great. So, and she said, I'm not doing anything for the money. I've got enough money to live on for my whole life, but I feel like this is going to change the world. So, and she's saying in her book, The 10-Year Career, I feel like when I read it, I felt like, okay, it's because I've had a few career changes as well. But I felt like it kind of gave you more like freedom and flexibility and like more like empathy in doing that, and more encouragement really, and having a career change every 10 years being only natural, because you change every few years, you change every 10 years. So why not? It's only natural for your career to change as well.
Yeah, I love that concept.
I love that book. Yeah.
Loads of people, I think there's a bit of a myth or a stigma when it comes to making changes. I read a book called 10x is easier than 2x. And that book was written by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. Fantastic book, by the way.
Okay.
But I was really anti this book because I thought 10x, hoorah, must grow your business. And I was just like, this is stressful.
Yeah.
So I avoided the book. But when I read it, this point I'm trying to make is there was a part in this book which was like, it's okay to change regularly. Because I had this belief that it was bad, that I was seen to be inconsistent if I was changing my business, if I was changing my career, because I had so many career changes.
Yeah.
My business has changed in the last 7 years since I ran it. It's changed names multiple times. We've changed team. We've changed what we offer.
Yeah.
And it's all been through learning. And before I used to think that it was bad. It was like, oh, here we go. Everyone rolling their eyes. Chloe's changed again. My first book and my second book, two very different concepts. And when I read this book, it was like, it's okay to change. And actually the quicker you pivot and change, the faster you're growing. That's how you 10x. And I was like, that's so interesting. It's right. If I hadn't changed, if I hadn't seen my life in those chapters and not as a 50-year stint and have to stick at it because I started it, there's no way I'd be here where I am now.
Yeah. That's such a cool idea.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. So I think it's interesting to see that there are books out there, also books that you've read that are nothing like your book, but it's inspired you anyway to sort of make those changes.
Yeah.
And I know when we spoke, like you love writing.
Yeah.
When we first spoke, I think about a month into your book, you were like, I already know what my next book's going to be.
Yeah,
so if you were to write a next book, sort of book 2, what would you write and why?
I think I've already decided the title. It's going to be called The Autistic Gut. And that's because when I was writing the gut health chapter in this book, Unlock Autism, I had so much to say, because that level of research, there's so much in there. It's so in detail, there's so much depth that you can write about an autistic person's gut and how it affects you. And for some, like the information is not available there, like for autistic individuals specifically. So that's my second book. I'm working on it now.
Oh, love it. Well, I can't wait to have a read, definitely. And what else is on your bucket list, Dave? Because I know you've obviously achieved so much so quickly in your business. What's next?
I just want to continue helping families. Just continue helping families. And that's my favorite part, the impact on families. And when I get a family say something to me that's really positive about their child, like the other day, I got a really, really nice thank you voice note from a parent. It was so nice. I couldn't sleep the whole night.
Oh, wow.
It was honestly, I was elated from that voice note. I couldn't sleep the whole night.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what I think I love about this, Dave, is that you've just got no ego. It's like, it's all about the families. That said, are there any like podcasts that you're like, I want to get on that podcast, or like radio or TV where you're like, I'd love my book to open that door?
I think sometimes I'm a bit of a fangirl with some podcasts.
You and me both. You and me both.
So I guess I've really been a really big fan and big listener of a few different podcasts. One is obviously The Diary of a CEO. Yeah. Absolutely amazing podcast. Literally changed my life. The guests on it, I learned so much from listening to Stephen's podcast. I feel like I know Stephen Bartlett for being such a great guy because of the questions he asks and the guests he chooses. So that one. And then 2 other podcasts. One is Deep Dive by Ali Abdaal. Do you know him?
No.
Oh, I love him. Like, again, he's actually been really inspiring as well. He's British. He's a Londoner. And he's got a YouTube. He's famous for his YouTube channel. He's got over 5 million subscribers. So, but his podcast is really interesting. And he just says, like, I just do the podcast for me. So often he'll actually record a lot of his business coaching calls and he'll put it on his podcast. So it's really personal because it's stuff that's affecting him, his business, his personal life, and he'll just share it as well. So I really like his podcast. And the third one is Mo Gawdat. Yeah. So Slow Mo. I just feel like he's so authentic, really intelligent, really wants to make a positive impact in the world. So those are my 3 bucket list podcasts.
Love that. And I think actually we met when we both met Mo, didn't we? Yeah, because we were at the same event.
I told you I was a fan.
Yeah. It's all coming back to me. Yeah. So obviously we both attended the same event. I was speaking at the event, as was Mo, and then that's when we met. So small very, very small world. But I think the reason I asked you that question, Deba, is, and I think you've just leapt into it. We work with so many authors where they want to write a book and they work really hard in writing a book, but they don't leverage it. They don't really lean into the post-launch. They like push themselves, they want to write the book and then they launch it and then they go, oh, that's it, move on to the next thing. But books are assets. Right. And you've leveraged it. I mean, you're on this show, you've got, I mean, I've lost count of podcasts and radio shows you've got lined up even in the next few months, speaking on stages and so on. So I'm just super excited to see sort of where you go next, but none of it's gone to your head. All of it's very much about you more and focusing on helping people rather than how it meets you.
I think also, it seems like quite big common knowledge now, but whenever you speak to an entrepreneur, they always say, they're the most, or whenever you speak to anyone at the end of their life, the thing that has the biggest impact on their health and their happiness and their general happiness is their family, literally their partner, their children, their close friends, their parents, their siblings' children. I still don't want to miss any of that. So I'm not going to try and let anything get to my head because I'm not going to miss any of that.
Yeah. And that's the whole point. You started this whole journey anyway, because that's when you first decided to help your son. So I'm curious as well. I know obviously it is still very personal. Your family is still very, very important to you. So if there's anything you don't want to share, of course not.
Sure.
What does your son know or think about what you do now, knowing that it started with him?
Do you know what? He thinks I'm a brain health coach because that's what I told him.
Wow.
Because with in step 7, do you remember step 7, empower emotions? So part of that is also teaching emotional literacy to your child. So teaching the skills of emotional literacy. And I wrote in the book why I did that, which is that it's like quite well known that the happiest individuals are the ones that have the most social connections. So I was like, okay, everyone, it's when you think of an autistic person, people think of someone who struggles in social situations. So I was like, I don't want him to struggle with social situations. I want him to have a life full of connection. So I deliberately taught him emotional literacy as much as I learned how you can teach it. I taught him.
Wow. So
part of that is also teaching about the brain. So he knows about, he calls like the prefrontal cortex, he calls it boss brain. Yeah, because that's how I taught him like the functions of like different parts of the brain, and like your boss brain and what's good for your brain, what's bad for your brain. And so he will talk about the brain way more than another child or like the average 6-year-old because of I've deliberately spoken to him about it so that he makes good choices. Like, oh, is this food good for your brain or bad for your brain? He'll say bad for your brain. So so he thinks. So I've told him I'm a brain health coach, so I help people have a better brain.
Wow. Oh, and to him, it's just normal, right? Because he doesn't know any different.
No.
And what about his mum now publishing a book and being a best-selling author?
Yeah, so his dad has said to him, oh, you want to write a book? Your mummy's written a book. And I don't think he thinks, because when you're 5 or 6, everything is kind of normal. You don't know what's abnormal. So he's like, oh yeah, mummy's published a book. Her photos here. Oh, sure, I'll do that one day. It's more normal. He doesn't realize how amazing, like how rare it is to do that. Yeah.
I think that's part of the inspiring journey though, isn't it? You're going to go on to inspire more people. I know there were authors that we'd published that you'd read. You were like, oh my God, I read that book and it inspired me. Yeah. You read my book to inspire you to write a book.
Absolutely.
I think it's your book will go on to inspire the people and him. And, who knows, he might go from having all these autistic traits and everything that you've helped him overcome to now becoming an author in the future himself.
Might do. He's very good at telling stories. So
wow. Well, if you need a publisher, you know where we are. I will say, but thank you so much for being on the show. It's been so great having you. And honestly, I feel like I could talk to you for ages. Now, obviously you've seen the show, so you know what's coming next. Our final question that we ask all our authors is, who do you know that has an inspiring story that you think we should have on the show next?
Okay, so I love a woman called Hayley Peacock. Have you heard of Hayley Peacock?
I haven't.
Okay, so Hayley Peacock, she is a really great mother. She is she has 4 children, and she's a speaker about education. So again, she spoke about education. It's in the education sector. And then when it came to her own children, she just decided none of these nurseries around me are good enough. So she created her own nurseries. So she created a whole chain of nurseries and I think called Little Barn Owls. And it's kind of near where she lives. And then again, when it came to them starting a school, like going to school, she was like, I just disagree with everything the school system does. Because everyone knows like the school system it was created through the Industrial Revolution. And there's so many concepts in it. Like even why do children need to wear a school uniform? Like genuinely, because when my son has ununiform days, all the children look happier. All the children look happy. And then she goes, like, the history of school uniform is just because, just to make, to uniform everyone and to have a bit of a class system. It's not there the children don't learn better. Mm-mm. And the fact that most schools, you're a good student if you memorize well. But in the real life, it's all about creativity and collaboration. So in like the normal school system, working with someone is like copying or cheating. You're supposed to do everything yourself. But in the real life, it's collaboration. So again, after she created a chain of really successful nurseries, she created her own school called Atelier 21. It's called Atelier 21 Future School. It's in Crawley, and she has a podcast about it as well. Wow. And I just love the school curriculum. It's really collaborative. Every Friday they have something called Wild Fridays, where the whole day is outdoors. They don't teach subjects in silos. So, like when we went to schools, like history is one subject, geography is one subject. So that's not how it is in real life. Everything does overlap. So she teaches everything as in her school, they teach everything like cross-curriculum. Wow. So honestly, she just took what a school should be and just really brought it into the 21st century. It's called Atelier 21 Future School. And, recently she's actually opened a branch to school in Poland, and she's opened, and she did something else as well, which was really, really impressive. I forgot what it was, but she's just expanding her school, expanding it all. And it's just, I feel like she just took what a school should be and just did it for her kids as well. She did it for her kids. And it's amazing. Literally, the curriculum is amazing. When you go there, the vibe is different. I just love it. Oh, well, so Hayley Peacock, that's her name.
100% agree with her recommendation. So thank you so much, Theba, and hopefully we can get Hayley on the show.
Yeah, Hayley's great.
Thank you so much for coming in. Obviously, I know you're going to do incredibly well with your book, but I'm so grateful that you've chosen us to publish your book, and here's to huge success, even more with it.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Thank you, Chloe.
No problem. Well, what an incredible episode we've had with Theba there, and I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Whether you are a parent or an entrepreneur or someone that's writing a book and you've learned something new from this episode, do make sure you share it in the comments of our YouTube channel, if you haven't already. If you are listening on all of the audio platforms or anywhere else, or you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to the show and follow us for more so you don't miss our next episode. I'll see you next week.